Okay, so welcome everybody. This is the January 2024 koha-US Consortia SIG. I'm Jason. I'm filling in for Bob, who is actually stepping down. So filling in for George, who will be your SIG leader moving forward starting next month. As I was saying before I started recording, I don't have an agenda for this, and we usually don't. So we'll just talk about whatever people want to talk about. So what do you guys want to talk about?
Okay, I have a question if no one else does. So I brought this up in the education meeting. We just upgraded to 2211, where we are discovering a new warning about our preferences in relation to authority records. The warning is saying system preference required choosing existing authority is disabled, but needs auto create authorities enabled. Otherwise, catalogers can add headings that will not be linked to authorities, which we actually at this point want. So what I'm wondering is, are there other consortiums? Like, what are your settings for authorities? Do you have auto create authorities enabled and or requiring choosing existing authorities enabled? Like, what does other people do?
We don't do the auto create authorities.
Okay.
So it's auto create authorities is don't generate, and then require choosing existing authorities is don't require. And that's we use Backstage as an authority vendor, so we send our records out to them. So it's like easier for them to be able to answer stuff. So if there are headings in there that are that shouldn't be in there, they're just gonna, not authorize them. So it's a little easier for us. So we do allow anyone to just put in anything into that 100 field, or else, because we found that it was super limiting if it made them choose. So it was just easier to let them do it and then edit it later, do like batch reporting and edit later.
That was our experience as well, because I know at the start we had it super restrictive, and then people couldn't do anything, and I can't expect too much out of my catalogers because a lot of my libraries are open very limited hours, and like I want that process to be as easy and pain-free as possible. So I want them to be able to like import a record on Z3950 and click save, add their item, be done. So if we have the requirement to choose an authority turned on, that complicates things. They get stuck, they don't finish, they put the books on the shelf without actually cataloging them. And we did at one point have auto create turned on, but that's just a big mess. Like it created a whole bunch of garbage. So yeah, our settings are the same as your guys's.
Okay. And you live with a warning.
Yeah, the warning just like I think it started appearing in 2305. We talked about that in education,
Yeah,
and like the
yeah.
reason the warning wasn't showing up was because of a typo in the template. It should have been there long before that. Um, but I guess that is a valid discussion to have, is like, should it really warn you about that if it works without having those set that way?
Yeah, or have two sets of warning. One warning is FYI, do you want this? And then another one is, you're breaking the system.
Right.
So
So like it's scary because you're thinking you are breaking the system right now, because it's just saying, hey, that
yeah,
shouldn't be like that. So
yeah.
I don't know.
Well, the last warning that it gave us, we were breaking the system. So Little paranoid on this one. But I'm glad that I'm in good company, that other people have it set up. Does anyone have anything different, like, for your consortium in regards to authorities? Okay. Well, that was my only question, so someone else can take the floor and ask their question.
Sure. What else is ailing you in your consortial setting, or just in general? Because everything we do is like also what single library branches do, just at exponential scale, right?
I do have one question. Does anybody use the patron statistics in the report section, the canned report for on the statistics wizards? Because we've got a question as to what if patron activity includes like SIP connections and everything, or if it's just physical items. And I'd asked ByWater, but they didn't give me an answer yet.
So, fun story. I blew up those statistics wizards reports. We actually had like a little vigil for them, and there was candlelight, and we played that really sad song they play on that commercial with the like animal ASPC or whatever, because we wanted more control over what those reports were doing. So, I the problem with the canned reports is that, I mean, you can't tell exactly what they're tracking, and if you write your own custom reports, then you know exactly what fields are being pulled. I don't know about, so you're looking at patrons. Does anybody else have an idea? Sorry, you're muted again, Christina.
Yeah, on the patron activity, the years of activity, one of my librarians ran the report, and we have a custom report and the numbers don't match. And so I was trying to find out, if it excluded SIP connections. And like I said, when I asked ByWater, they didn't know. So I'm not even sure. I just kind of told them not to use the statistical wizard, which kind of sounds like the best advice at this point. So.
Yeah, there's probably a way to figure out exactly what it's doing, but you'd have to dig through, like, every one of those wizards has its own background code, and it'll just save you a lot of time and headache to just to use your custom reports, I would say.
And that's fine. I'm good with that. It's just like I have library staff that are like, but these, are here and shouldn't they be right? And it's just like they probably are right for something, but I can't tell
Yeah.
you. So
And that's
okay.
why I did away with them in a dramatic manner, so that they realized, hey, that stuff probably wasn't giving you the most accurate stats we could get.
All right. Well, that just confirms my feeling on the whole thing. I do have one other question. Our directors have decided to change the expiration dates for certain patron types. We used to have a 999 month for expiration, and they want to change it to like 48 months. And going in and changing it is easy. I just wanted to know if there's anything that I should be wary of before I do that. I know it won't affect anything that's already there, but going forward, it should just be a straight change. Am I correct in assuming that? Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
usually that sort of stuff is like, it doesn't affect old stuff, but moving forward, any new account that's created is going to get that date generated automatically off of whatever we put in there. Yeah, I don't see any other major problems.
Major issue.
Sorry, Lauren.
Because we are going through a major patron cleanup. We were a year after our migration and just pulling the reports and everything. And there's a lot of stuff that if we had thought about it beforehand, we probably would have gotten rid of them before we did the migration. So, but we have a lot of new directors, so we're doing a lot of changing. So, and our patron cleanup is our big project right now. So, okay, thank you.
We're in the midst of doing that as well. And we're doing library cleanup. We changed all of our expiration dates, and now I'm going through and doing some batch patron modifications so that everything reflects that we're starting now on our year expirations, so I can send reports every year and they'd be correct on, do I need to renew this patron or not? And then we're also doing staff permissions, because I had everyone doing their own local thing, and we decided, I'm like, I can't keep track. I don't know who has what. So we're using the batch. Oh no, I can't remember the name. There's a plugin that allows you to do batch modifications for your staff permissions, which has been wonderful. If I can stop finding permissions of staff that had permissions on the old system and weren't in my original list. So evidently I have 2 reports that run staff permissions and don't give you the same information. Probably has to do with when it was written on a really old version of Koha, and
Yeah, permissions reports are always fun because if you want to parse out the data, then you have to do it line by line, and then if they add a permission, then it's not going to show up on the report anymore.
It'd be nice if the report showed you this is the version it was created on.
Yeah, they've done that in the wiki in places, and I know George has been trying to push dates on anything that you add so that you know, or push version number on anything you add. I see Mike put in the chat about slowness. I will say that we have been experiencing some slowness lately as well. I was out training yesterday, and I was trying to decide if it was their internet or if it was us. But I think it was a combination at that point. But I was doing batch modifications and imports this morning, and it was like really dragging at points. But it sounds like ByWater's on top of it, and it has to do with the upstream provider. So anybody else having fun experiences like that? Lauren's not, because she's not a ByWater hosted site, right?
I'm not, though. I'm having slowness when switching from the basic editor to the advanced editor since the upgrade. And I don't know if it doesn't make sense that 2211 would be slower than 2205, but it doesn't want to load. It stalls. But I don't know if this group, I think this is a cataloging group question and not a consortia, but it's running very slow.
We were just upgraded, and I do the cataloging, and I switch a lot from basic to advanced, but I've been so busy I have not done it since we upgraded, so I don't know if I can't give you an answer to it, but I do it as well. I'll keep an eye out. I'll see if it.
So my understanding is ByWater is upgrading everyone to 2305. We're behind. We just upgraded to 2211.
Oh, okay. I didn't notice that when we were on 22. That's when I was using it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and we don't use the advanced editor hardly at all, so I can't comment on that one.
Yeah, and it may be my internet because it's been going in and out because we've been having a lot of rain, and weird weather. So maybe that's it. Thanks.
I can throw out a bug that's of consortial interest. I talked about this in a few places already, I think, but I came across this bug about defining emergency or override rules for the circulation rules table, and realized that that would save me a lot of headaches and a lot of time if my idea was like you have a layer up here where any rule you put up here overrides and supersedes anything below it. So right now it's a trickle down, right? So at the very bottom is the default, all libraries, all patron types, all item types, and then up here the libraries are in the middle. So if I have an all rule at a specific library, I can't make a global rule because it'll be below it on that all library rule. So it would be really nice if there was something that I could put a stop or two at the top. So I've requested a quote from ByWater on this to see if how much development might cost. But it has potential to like greatly reduce my circ find rules tables by a lot because like every one of my 50 I'm at 50 libraries now. That's exciting. Every one of my 50 libraries is has a rule in there, 2 rules for self-registered patrons that could just be 2 global rules. And then I had to start building up rules for a special kit collection that we're circulating out of the office here. But if I want to make it work, I have to put in a rule line at every library so that organizations can place holds, but regular patrons can't. Whereas if there was a layer up there that supersedes, then I could just have one rule to block it at all the libraries. So I'm hoping that this gets some movement, and I talked about it at the development committee meeting as well. So if it's like super expensive, we might try and push to crowdfund it that way.
I do have a question. So on this new feature, what I'm running into now is sometimes my all rules and my local rules may be competing against, like they're conflicting. We just ran into this where I didn't know it existed. Somehow it got set, and we're like, why is it limiting patrons to 5 checkouts? And it was because there was an all category rule that said limit to 5 patrons, but the local library they can check out 10. Would this bug also include like warning signs?
No, there is another bug. So I went on a little deep dive adventure through bugs. There are about 3 or 4 bugs that talk about validating rules or checking rules. The one that I think is probably the best to look at is this one, 19037. It looks like somebody had already written a patch and tried to do this a little bit, but that would implement a testing tool where you could put in the patron an item, and then it would tell you exactly which rule it was getting stopped at. And I think that would be greatly beneficial to all of our sanity if we had some way to pinpoint exactly what's causing a problem in the circ find rules. But that would be separate from what I'm proposing, so it probably would need to be another development to get it picked back up and moving. But definitely CC yourself on the pad the ticket vote. I see that Christopher did recently, hoping that gets some the more attention we give it, the more movement it'll get.
I'd love to comment on all these things, but I never have anything intelligent to say. So it's like I want to show my
Well, even
support.
if you just the simplest interaction you can make with Bugzilla is just pull up the ticket and hit save, and that'll copy you on it, and it'll also send an email to everybody else that's copied that says you copied yourself on it, which will bring it back up into their vision.
Okay.
But also it doesn't hurt to just add a comment that says this would save me so much time. This would save my sanity. Because anything like that is gonna like convince the developers that it's something that a lot of people need. The more people that throw that sort of stuff at it, hopefully the more attention we can get on it. One thing we were talking about at education as well was like sitting down, trying to do like meetings with the developers so that us as librarians can talk with the developers about the importance of some of this stuff. And I think this would be a good topic. What else do we want to talk about today? Anybody else have burning questions, issues you're having? I mentioned we hit 50 libraries. We're retrospectively converting sort of like we've got this weird situation where the library is um sprouting out of the ground, basically. Their city got a bunch of money. They don't have a building, but they've already started their collection purchasing. So we went down and trained them yesterday, and I've got them set up just for cataloging so that like can't place holds, can't do any sort of circulation things. But I discovered that I've broken it in such a way that anytime you check in an item, it gives you a 500 error. So I'm trying to like work my way back through the settings to figure out what I did wrong there. But at this point, it doesn't matter too much because I don't want them circulating.
I'm just gonna throw the bug that we're trying to get sponsored. We have a third of it done. We just, I think, need the last $5,000. It's gonna be 15,000. So what I put in the chat is granular cataloging permissions, and it would just level cataloging permission. So if you are at a level 10, you can't edit a record that's at a level 50. And if you're at a level 50, you can't edit a record that's at a level 60, but you can edit a record that's at a 20 or something. So it would be a gradual level up permissions. So I'll just throw that in there. And we have sponsored, I think, at least 5,000 up to 7 or something. So there is an amount that has already been pledged for it. And then ByWater said that they would throw in 5,000 as well.
You might also send that to Andrew as the leader of the dev committee, because that's what we were talking about at the development committee this past month, was looking to the next developments that we're going to want to put on the vote for some sort of funding. So I don't think this one was on the list, but it seems like a good candidate.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question for the group. I've been trying to put out feelers on this. We had a situation come up with a library where they needed to make a certain section unavailable due to some building upgrades, so they couldn't get to certain shelving. And I know that you can mark. Well, let me ask this: is there a way to shut down shelving locations so that they're not holdable, or Yeah, just that they're not holdable, I guess.
So when we've had to address this in the past, we typically just do a batch modification and move everything into a not for loan status of like stored or something, which prevents holds, it prevents checkouts, prevents all that. But I can't think of a way to specify the shelf location. Like it's actually grabbing onto the individual items and assigning a status to them.
It
And Mike
seems
said
like,
that's what they're doing too.
yeah, that's essentially what we've had to suggest to them, is that if they either ignore the holds, which holds will be in limbo for the amount of the duration of their upgrade, or they have to batch modify them. And it seems like we have most of what's in place, where it seems like it would be a good step forward for Koha to be able to specify, you know, instead of certain branches that we could say, okay, certain things within that branch that are not holdable for a time being with a setting.
And you can do that with item types. There's a little checkbox that makes things unavailable for loan, but you can't do that with shelf location. So I could see that as like a progression of that functionality.
Okay.
So we use the course reserves module as a display right now. We have that modified thing from, I don't know if it was Lucas or Kyle who wrote that. But one thing you could do is maybe create an item type that has those specifications, as Jason was alluding to, and then add them all to a course or display and change the item type to that new type. And then once it's all done, you just delete the course or display and everything goes back to normal, no matter what the item type is originally for them.
I'm trying to understand that. So are you still having to touch each individual item through batch modification of some sort, or
So, well, like, let's say there's a whole mix of things, like, you have DVDs in there, you have books in there, like 21-day books, 7-day books, you have things that are holdable, not holdable, renewable, not renewable. So if you do gather them all by barcode and throw them in a course reserve, and you can batch change them right from there to a different type that has, like, it's not holdable, you can't check out, they won't page for holds, and then it'll temporarily change those as long as that course exists,
got
as
it?
long as they're in there, and it keeps and it retains the original type that they normally would. So you have like 5 different collection of 5 different types. And then once the course is done, like once you remove the course or remove the items from that course, they go back to their original type with just literally one click.
Got it. And you said you had some plugin that you're using as well?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, let me share. Can you see it? I can't tell. Oh no, it's not sharing. Oh, here we go.
Oh, wait a minute. Something, there we go. Okay,
All
got
right.
it.
So I'm just going to, shows I don't have any displays here. Barrington does. Well, actually, there's a good idea. Set library to Jameson, because I just did this for a library that is moving into their new building. No, it was Merrick. Oh gosh, I forget. There's two libraries that they just got into like new buildings. I forgot which one.
Oh, are you able to set the view that it's only viewable by that library? That course display?
It's
'Cause
just
we
a little
just
chunk of jQuery.
Yeah,
could just
I don't know how it's done, but this was what
I do. Let me
either
find it.
Lucas or
Thank you. Yeah.
so basically this all the items in this store in this display, this is really course reserves with a new fresh coat of paint. So basically when you add a course, so temp storage, none of that really matters, but it's enabled. And then you basically add items. You can just add them by barcode. Yeah, we've been going through some slowness.
Yeah.
The course reserves module itself is really, really slow, and there is a development request out there to optimize the code, but it's a bear.
So we use this like to put items on display. So they have a temporary shelving location of a display or a similar thing and then it retains their old shelving location once it's removed from this display. But you can also change the item type. So and no matter what is in here, then you can assign everything to like book non-circulating or something like that, or whatever I type you've come up with. And then when you paste the barcodes in here, submit, and everything's reverted to that. When you disable the display, then everything gets put back to what it was originally without touching each one.
I'm familiar with using course reserves and using it for displays and such, but I was trying to inquire about, you had mentioned a plugin. Are you talking about an actual plugin, or was it just a jQuery modification to change it to displays?
Oh, this isn't a plugin, it's a jQuery hack.
Okay. Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure I was getting all the pieces that were being talked about. Thanks.
Sure.
Are they wanting the records of the items that are in that section to still appear on the OPAC? Or would they be okay if they're not there? You can hide shelving locations so
Yes,
that
but it
only
would,
patrons with batch modifications can view them.
yeah. I looked at that, but the shelving locations are used between several branches. So if we hit a shelving location, it would affect all branches that use it. So there's no way to do a combo in the hiding. Unfortunately, you can't specify this branch, this shelving location, which would be nice if they updated that so you could do combinations, but not at this time.
That sounds like a good bug. Make YAML syspreps consortial friendly. It sounds like a scary thing to do, but you're right, it would be nice if you could define like branch code shelf location combinations in that OPAC hidden item sysprep.
Yeah, and unfortunately that wouldn't prevent even though you could prevent it, the patrons from doing it, we wouldn't be able to prevent staff from doing it. And plus, if you're doing first available holds, that stuff still grabs on. So the best approach is to stop the holds on this. So, you know, ideally it would be nice if there was a setting somewhere you could say, you know, temporarily unavailable, you know, for whatever reason. And you could specify a branch and shelving location or set of barcodes or whatever, and it would hide it in the OPAC, and it would make it turn off the holds for those specific items. So that, and I kind of like the course reserves. In fact, you know, they need to just rename course reserves to something else, because course reserves can be used for many different purposes aside from course reserves.
Yeah, the problem is it's branded. Like, it's got term, it's got course, it's got instructor, like, but yeah, it's a really nice piece of functionality, like where you can set temporary things and then revert them. I wish there was like maybe a secondary general tool that did that too, something.
I had suggested that they copy it for specifically displays, because there's a lot of work in just, you know, converting it over to displays in general. But you know, to be able to catch everything and relabel everything. But no, if it would be nice if that was set up to be a multifunction module, where you could say, okay, I want this, I want a copy of this to function for course reserves. I want a copy of this to function for displays. I want a copy of this to function for, you know, whatever. So you can kind of parse it out, label it, define how, you know, what pieces function, you know, what pieces are used, rather than trying to reinvent the wheel for everything, or, you know, hijack it for one particular function, and, you know, it kind of, you know, keeps it from being used for other functions. Like if you wanted to use course reserves and displays, you have to pick between one or the other, or you have to put up with the fact that it does both and they're going to be bleeding together.
So I wanted to share, Michelle, I can share my screen, because fun fact, I wrote this code, and when Mike was showing it off, I'm like, hey, that's mine. So I can sort of interpret what's going on here. But for the specific thing that you were asking, it's this one little line here. It's saying that if the table body contains the library name, which I'm defining up here as the, I'm pulling that out of the code on the page. So I'm getting the library's name, and then I'm putting that into the body and hiding everything that's in the table if that name doesn't match. So like, yeah, the easiest thing to do, like Mike said, would be to contact ByWater and just have them do that. But if you're just wanting that little chunk of code, all you need is to define the variable for the library name, wrap it in the location. So this is just making sure it's happening on course reserves only. And then you should just need this one and maybe this one to redraw the table, just those bottom two, inside of the course reserves limiter, page limiter thing. But if you want to see the whole thing and my presentation on it, I think that's on the koha-US website. And then like I linked the GitHub in there, so you can see the full code. And I think there's a link in the GitHub to Google Doc of instructions on how to use. That's more of like usage after the fact. But I presented this at the KohaCon in Lawrence a few years ago, so there's a recording of the presentation as well.
There is a set of instructions in the jQuery library using course reserves for display management that Ed posted in 2018. Is yours the same?
I sort of built off of that, because his was either just looking at the staff client or just looking at the OPAC, but I expanded off of that. So I haven't put anything in the jQuery library, no.
that was my next question. Can you make it available?
Yeah, I can put the GitHub link there. It's not complete. I know that there was something that I changed recently and I didn't update the GitHub, but I can definitely add it to that similar section on the wiki.
That would be nice. Because yeah, 2018 is 5 years ago and a lot has changed, especially in versions, and it'd be nice to see something a little bit more current. And Ed did so much and you expanded on it. It would be nice to see something a little bit more complete too. I just updated some jQuery for quick permissions that we did a video on our first season of the training videos, and a lot has changed. 2305, we make a reference, we make a button to copy the permissions from one user to another, and in that functionality in the modal that comes up asking what do you want to, what patron you want to copy this to, it's supposed to close the modal and then hit the save button. Well, it does everything except for hit the save button because they changed a class on that button that I was referring to. So I went and fixed that, but also when we did the video, I was referring to a SQL report to grab a borrower number, and I have since modified it to do API for that, so it doesn't rely on a report anymore. So I updated that. I also removed a redundant clear all flags button. Now they have a link up there, so did some modifications and updated that today. So it's nice when we can update our code so that people are getting the latest and greatest.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that because I'm using that still.
That's been a handy feature. I've enjoyed that. I'm surprised they have not incorporated that particular functionality yet.
We got about 15 minutes left. Are there other things people want to talk about? Or bugs we want to collectively file? Or look at?
I love how you on your GitHub, it's JSON KS, not Jason KS.
Yeah. I don't know if I love that, but it's done now and I'm not changing it. I did like task myself with learning more about JSON because my name is Jason, so I have a slightly better understanding of JavaScript object node. What? Yeah, I don't even know what it stands for.
Now I just want to refer to you as JSON.
You can. That's my name.
All right, you heard it here, folks. He can be referred to as JSON.
I had another bug I was going to share, but I don't see it. Let me find it. Okay, so this is not strictly consortial, but it came up the other day and I found the bug and it's in discussion. So it has to deal with holds on suspended items. So we have had a situation where the patron had placed a hold, suspended the hold, then they found the book on the shelf and checked it out. They had set the hold to unsuspend itself, so when they returned the book, the hold triggered. So the question came up was like, since that hold was checked out, shouldn't it be like filled and wiped out and not worried about anymore? So that's what this bug is basically saying is shouldn't that go away? And technically no, because the hold never got filled in the first place, right? So it still exists, but it creates a lot of confusion. So I put my 2 cents there that it creates some confusion, and it also creates the opportunity for a really smart patron to keep themselves at the top of the list for something. Like if they put a hold on, suspend it, check it out, and then unsuspend it, when it comes back, they're going to get it again. So I can't see most of my patients figuring that out, but I could see somebody doing it with like hotspots or video games or something where they want to try and keep it longer. So my suggestion was maybe that needs to be a system preference since I couldn't think of a case where it would be useful to maintain that suspended hold, but um, if we had the option to say, yes, please do fill the hold if it gets checked out while it's suspended, that would save a little bit of staff time and confusion for us. So it's a really niche thing, and I doubt it comes up very often, but if it's something that interests you, there's a bug for that.
Yeah, it probably also has to be one that it has to be an item that is actually holdable, because we've noticed that, like let's say they check out a book that isn't holdable, there is a hold, it doesn't fill and it just doesn't go away, and which kind of makes sense, but if there are other items available on that bib. But I'm even like something that's like item specific, it doesn't even go away. I can see what the bib level holds. But it seems a little frustrating sometimes because it, it then appears that the item is checked out and on hold for them.
Yeah, from like a logical standpoint, the way it works makes sense, but from like an actual boots on the ground standpoint, it probably could use some user experience finesse, I would say.
Sorry, I was working on something while this conversation was going on, and I'm looking at comments on there, and so it sounds like we're still talking about the holds, the suspended holds, not marked as filled. So it's not telling circ staff at all about that suspended hold, and it's not touching it at all. It seems like at the
Right.
very least, it should say, hey, did you know that there is a suspended hold for this? Do you want to clear that? At least give that option. If not an automatic, let's clear that out. I mean, if it's an active hold, it makes sense that, hey, this is getting in their hands and it's an active hold, clear that out. If it's suspended, it should be at least addressed. I don't know that it should necessarily be automatically removed like the active hold.
Yeah, and I think that's what Katrin was proposing, was having it like ask
Yeah,
the circ staff about it. But then she mentioned that like self-checks would have a problem too that would need addressed at that point.
I've noticed some really old suspended holds on patrons' accounts too, because they come in and they get the book and they check it out and then they just forget about that hold that they had on their account and they just leave it forever. So that's another, I'd like to be able to get rid of some of those old suspended holds, but I don't want to, just delete them on the patron without knowing for sure they don't want those holds anymore.
it would be nice if the system had a preference for suspended holds. Can holds be suspended indefinitely, or should they be marked for like 6 months and then have the patron confirm that they want to extend the suspension or clear them. You know, will they automatically fall off, or you know, how those suspended holds should behave. I mean, ultimately, who is it? Is it hurting anybody that those suspended holds are even just existing? That's, that's a question. Is it hurting anybody? I mean, if as a sysadmin, do you want bloated tables where people just have stuff lingering there for no particular reason and for eternity, or do you want to force people to clean up their stuff? And I think that's that's an area where it's kind of questionable as to, do we put any effort into something like that? Do we want to take on the task of forcing people to clean up their stuff when it really has no impact on anybody, or does it have impact on people?
Yeah, and I would argue that it might, because like not in this scenario, but like if the patient doesn't realize that they can set an unsuspend date and they just suspend it and then they forget about it, then they're never getting it. Whereas if we could do something like you said, where there's a limit of something, like it has to be suspended for 6 months at the very least. It can't be suspended indefinitely. Then at least it's coming back to the surface. Maybe it gets filled and sent, and then we call them and they say, "Oh, I put that on hold a long time ago. I don't want it anymore." But at least they're made aware of it again, so that it doesn't live in a black hole like Juliet's stuff is.
I guess
I
you
think,
could, if it was really important to you, I guess you could use some jQuery and remove the ability to just place a blanket suspend. You would be forced to fill in suspend until date. And you
yeah, and I think there's a
could
bug
also
about
probably limit that, how far out can they suspend until.
I think there's a bug about suspending holds and batch in the OPAC, maybe, because it's not as user friendly in the OPAC as it is in the staff client. Because I think can we suspend to a date in a batch in the staff client? I don't work that circ that much.
You mean individual suspensions?
Like
Or
go to the
batch?
patron's card, suspend all their holds until X date.
I don't know if you can do it
Is that an option?
as a batch.
Yeah, I don't know. I
There's an
just feel like,
option on there that says suspend all holds until, and then you can enter the date. So it looks like you could do that, but that would be
Yeah.
per patron.
right. So what I was thinking was like, I don't think that patrons can do that yet, but I think there might be that functionality might be coming. And then in that case, if they've got that option with that box, then we could pre-populate with jQuery 6 months out, like force the suspension date.
I'm curious if that suspend all holds until option would overwrite any existing suspend until set or suspensions.
I don't know. It'd be something to test out.
I would hope they had tested that out before they just threw that in there.
Yeah, it looks like if you already had a suspended hold till a certain date and you use that and you'd extended it, it would extend the one that you already had. So, but yeah, I
I mean,
think though, if we just got it so we could address the ones that the holds that they've come in and got while they were suspended, that would cut down on a lot of the old ones anyway. So I like the idea of this bug and being able to have it as a system preference.
Yeah, and I mean, system preferences. So like we could do all the things if somebody wanted to throw enough money at it, where the system preference was don't do or ask. I mean, ask for confirmation from the staff before you do. So we've just got a few minutes left. Anything else anybody wants to talk about?
Has anybody talked about the 2305 bug? I talked to you about it, Jason, but I'm wondering if just in general in the community, if anybody has talked about the bug for canceling marked holds and the cancel reason. I know that I had recently run into that where if our workflow has been we grab expired holds on the hold shelf and we go over to a circ desk and check them in, and it shows that it has been waiting and you could cancel the hold, but it does not cancel if the reasons weren't defined. And by default, I think that there weren't any reasons set in there, and so that button was not working, and we had to create some reasons. So, just if anybody is not aware, in 2305 that was a bug, and they are fixing that.
I'm glad you messaged me about that because we ran into it the day after the upgrade. Somebody emailed me and I was like, oh yeah, I gotta put in a reason there, and now you have to click an extra button, but it's okay, it'll work. So yeah, we never had any defined either because that authorized value category came well after we started using Koha.
I think for us it was already set up so it defaults to no confirmation reason, and then that doesn't send an email about if the hold was canceled, but if you choose any other of the reasons that we have, it will send an email alerting the patron to the hold being canceled, which I did not know. And like just one night on a weekend, I'm just learning the system and I'm sending out random emails at 9 o'clock at night. People like, what are you doing on a Saturday night? But yeah, that oops. But yes, so that seems to be working for us a little bit.
I did have one other upgrade bug I can share that we ran into.
We have to
We
wait
had
till next
problems
month.
with
It's 10 o'clock.
what? No. I'm clinging to power because I'm not in charge after this. You're stuck with me for the next minute while I search through my emails. Just in case anybody else is having indexing problems. I don't know if it's strictly related to the upgrade. But we found when we were looking at the about page, we had like things outside the index, like things that weren't getting indexed, and then we found that they weren't some things weren't searchable. And ByWater mentioned it was this bug 34014, and they had to run some sort of cleanup script to get things working exactly right again. So if you've got errors on your about page about indexing, it could be that bug.
Good to know. I just recently discovered, I know that a version or two back they added the version number on the home page, which has been really nice, but I've never clicked it, and I just realized if you click it, it doesn't take you into your about information, which would be something that I had assumed. It takes you to a community page, and it's like, okay, not what I expected, but all right.
Yeah, it's an interesting choice. I'm sure there was a reason behind it. And I'm sure you could change it out if you really didn't like it.
We have the power.
All right, so I mean, we didn't start until 2 after, so technically we're right now at an hour. If there's nothing else pressing, burning, I think we will go ahead and wrap this one up for this month. As I said, George is taking over next month as the official leader for this group. And I think that meeting is on the 20, I can't read my handwriting. It's the 4th Thursday of every month, so February 22nd. So thanks everybody for coming, and hopefully we'll see you next month.
Thank you. Bye.